What's up, everybody? My name is Josh LaFleur from Late Start Piano. Today, we're going to be talking about expression in music, what it is, why it's so important, and why you need to become conscious of it during your daily piano practice. So, first of all, expression is what really makes the music. If you can play the ink on the page, as my piano teacher says, if you can play the notes on the page, that is great if you can physically and technically play what it demands of you. But if you don't have any expression in the piece, then it doesn't really matter because music is supposed to be emotional, right? Music should be bringing out some kind of emotion. It's a way for human beings to express things that they can't express verbally. And the expression piece is how that is done in music. Expression is how that emotion gets conveyed in music. It's not necessarily the notes that are being played. If you play a C major chord and an A minor chord and then a G major and a C minor, that's not really the expression piece that's in music. It's about how you're playing. That's what actually conveys the emotion, not the literal chords or notes that you're playing. And expression has a few pieces to it. First piece is something like phrasing. So, how is the music constructed? Is it with straight eighth notes? Is it with swing eighth notes? What time signature is it in? What's the tempo of the music? Are there accents, like articulation? Are there accents in the music? All of these things are all about the expression in the music because all of it changes the way it feels, right? So, if you take a rock and roll song and you now are swinging the eighth notes, even if you leave everything else the exact same, by default, it's going to sound a lot more jazzy and bluesy because now the eighth notes are being swung. Especially since rock and roll and jazz are pretty similar already. If you start swinging eighth notes in a rock and roll song, it's going to be very hard to tell the difference between that and a blues and a jazz song, right? Or you think of something like the time signature, even. If you're in 3/4 and you're doing a kind of a waltz dance, that's going to be different than if you have it in 4/4. It's going to change the feeling if you have it in 6/8, right? 5/4. All of these things change the way the emotion comes out of the music because I would say in general, 6/8 can be a little bit faster, 3/4 is a little bit slower, right? And you think of 3/4 music, that's like the waltz and Mozart days. You're really writing music in 3/4 to be danced to. And you can't be dancing 100 miles an hour, so 3/4 time the waltzes are usually slower. Then you might have something in 6/8 time that might be a little bit faster, a little bit more going on. So just even the time signature can change the way that that music is conveyed emotionally. Then you have that's kind of more about the phrasing. Then you have the articulation piece of it. So the articulation is a certain note accented? Are there staccato markings? Is it legato? Right? What do the markings look like on the actual page? Because staccato playing and legato are pretty much the polar opposites. So depending on how you play that, it's going to change the emotion of the song. Again, staccato having that short, jumpy sound to it, right? It's like very quick and short. That might be more, again, a more like a Western song. You think of like the Saloon, like The Entertainer, or something like that. That might be more of a staccato kind of sound, really jumping around. And you have your left hand, you're jumping up and down between octaves. That's more of a bluesy style, more of the Entertainer like song, like style. When you play something like that, which is short and jumpy, that emotion is going to be different than if you play the same exact piece but legato. So legato being everything is connected. You think of a lot of classical pieces. You think of like Liebestrom No. 2 by Liszt. You think of Clair de Lune. All of those are very legato. Everything is connected. Everything is smooth. And that has a much different feeling than if you were to play the same pieces, but with a staccato feeling. And to a lesser degree, even the accents. If you accent a certain note versus not accenting a different note, that also can change the feeling of your emotion because accents are about drawing more attention to a particular note or a particular chord. So if you start accenting minor chords, it might be more of a sad emotion you're conveying versus accenting a major chord or a happy chord, and that's going to convey a different emotion. So that's another huge part of expression in music. Last thing, and I think it's the most important piece of expression, is dynamics. So to recap, all of expression is we had the phrasing, we had the articulation, and now the most important, in my opinion, is the dynamics. Dynamics is simply just a volume of what you're playing. So you can have things like crescendos, diminuendos, you can have mezzo, piano, forte, fortissimo. All of that is your dynamics in music. It's the volume that you're playing. This one's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but you can imagine if you're playing a quote unquote sad song, but maybe you're playing it really loud, you're playing it fortissimo, and then you start adding things in like accents or staccato notes, that sad song might turn into more of an angry song, right? Because now you're playing louder. Maybe you can change up the tempo. That's another piece as well to this. You can change up the tempo. That's another big piece of expression. And now it's become a sad song and now it's angry. Or you can do the opposite. You think of, again, Clair de Lune's a great example. That beginning, that opening phrase, it sounds kind of longing. It sounds kind of mysterious, kind of sad, I would say, on the sadder side. And it's very legato. It's very quiet, the way you play it. And everything is connected. If you were to speed up that Clair de Lune or you were to slow it down even more, then that's going to have a completely different feeling. And the dynamics as well. If you were to play it a lot louder, that's a different feeling versus playing it even softly, that's a different feeling as well. So dynamics are huge, especially when you combine the tempo and the volume together. Very easy way to do this, if you think about it, is when you have a crescendo in a piece of music. Say, so crescendo meaning you're supposed to increase volume, let's say for a measure. Say right now you're at mezzo forte, and then by the end of the measure, to start the new measure, you should be at forte, which means medium loud to loud. You have that crescendo, so each note should be gradually getting louder. Another thing you can do, if it fits the song, is you can also slightly increase the tempo just for that section. So now that section you're playing louder, you're playing faster, the anticipation is building, right? Everything is getting more intense. And then in the next measure, you can slow it down again, right? You can slow it back down, you can go back to playing quieter, and that's just a much different emotion. Dynamics are huge. They're huge in music, they're huge to your piano playing because that's what really brings out the emotion in your playing. Expression as a whole, everything we've talked about, tempo, phrasing, articulation, dynamics, all of those things bring out the expression in music, they bring out the emotion. But dynamics is probably the most important of those because your volume, the way you're playing it, soft versus loud, that really grabs people's ear. It really grabs their attention depending on what you do. So hope that all that helps. That's the expression piece in music. As far as how you can practice this, really, it's just about becoming aware and conscious of what you're doing. It's becoming much more aware of the sheet music that you're looking at and much more aware of the feeling that you're trying to convey. A lot of times, especially as brand new piano players, you focus so much on hitting the right notes that it can be difficult to focus on anything else because you're so focused on keeping time and you're focused on just being able to actually hit the right notes. But what you can do is go back to easier songs that you have learned already, songs that you feel pretty comfortable with, and go back and try to tighten up your expression, tighten up your dynamics, tighten up the articulation, the phrasing, the tempo. Try to tighten all that up, make it much more emotional. Try to play it that way, and you will notice that, first of all, it sounds a lot better, and it's also going to be a little bit more difficult to play because you're trying to add in all of these other elements into your playing. So the best way to practice the expression is to go back to earlier pieces and really focus on the dynamic symbols that are in the piece and try your best to bring them out in your playing as best as you can. Hope all that helps. Again, my name is Josh LaFleur with Late Start Piano. If you want even more guidance, I do have a free PDF on my website. Link is below. This free guide has 34 essential tips for the adult beginner piano player to learn how to play. We're going to be talking more about your mindset and approach, practice strategies, music theory, and at the very end, we'll teach you how to play your first song. Again, that's on the website down below. If you want to take it a step further, I am offering lessons right now via Zoom. To get started with that, send me an email. Link is also below, latestarpiano@gmail.com. Again, my name is Josh LaFleur. Happy practicing.